So, this video is a little different than most videos on my channel, which are almost all racing, but when I created this channel, I envisioned it as a gaming channel as a whole. So, let's take a look at a new game. The Bus is a new game that was released in early access on Steam on March 29th for $24.99 US dollars. The game is in early access, so that means I'm gonna be a little bit easier on my thoughts, but even if it's in early access, the game still has to be functional. The game is developed by TML-Studios and published by Aerosoft. The two companies have worked together before on bus simulator games such as Tourist Bus Simulator and Fern Bus Simulator. Aerosoft has also worked on OMSI 2. The Bus, like Fern Bus Simulator and Tourist Bus Simulator, uses Unreal Engine 4. This game is a 1-to-1 scale of Berlin and the TXL line. The game currently only has one bus, and it is the Scania Citywide. However, the Citywide is available in two variants, a regular non-articulated variant and an articulated variant. This game also only features one line currently, but they plan to add the 100, 200, and 245 lines in Berlin at a later point. If you've played Fern Bus Simulator or Tourist Bus Simulator, the menu will look quite familiar, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a good thing. By default, the game was set to full screen borderless window, and I had to change it to full screen to get any resolution options. I also immediately disabled motion blur because, well, motion blur sucks, but that's just my opinion. The menu is consistent with their older games, and that's great, but now this is just my personal opinion, and I think the weakest part of the game's menu is the button mapping. Like the previous games from TML, you have to map general controls, and then each vehicle gets mapped separately. This isn't that big of a problem for the bus because there's currently only one bus, but when more get added, then you have to go in and remap the controls again. This game does allow multiple input devices and supports wheels, so mapping controls isn't really much of an issue, it's just tedious and time consuming. My wheel and pedals were recognized and there were controls mapped, but I unmapped everything and started from scratch to minimize issues that I've had in the past with other TML games. I would just hope for a more streamlined button mapping section. Something where you can map controls for all vehicles at once. So, I said the game supports wheels, it also supports controllers. You may need to configure the controls though. The game even supports just keyboard and mouse, which is great, options. But another button mapping issue I had was with my wheel. Whenever I mapped a button on my wheel, it would pop up a message saying there was a conflict with steering, gas, and brake. Now, there isn't really an issue. It's just some weird glitch. You can map the buttons and they work fine. The Bus isn't the first TML game to do this. It did it in Fern Bus, and then it did it in Tourist Bus. So now this is the third game to do it. So this is just kind of annoying. It doesn't really affect gameplay, but it can be confusing for some people if they're not familiar with the issue. Also, the force feedback settings are in gameplay settings instead of with the input settings, which is a little unusual. There is support for Tobii eye tracking and Track IR, which is great. There is also a telemetry interface for apps like Sim Dashboard, but it says it's in beta. Fern Bus and Tourist Bus say the same thing for their telemetry interface, but from my experience it works just fine once you remember to update the desktop program. That was the whole thing. The game features a full day-night cycle with weather and seasons. You can also walk freely outside and in the bus. Outside the bus you can walk in first or third person mode, but in the bus you can only walk in first person mode. But you can drive the bus in third person mode if you wish. But you'll have to switch to first person mode to sell tickets. Passengers enter and exit the bus and you have to sell tickets to them. However, in the couple hours I've played, passengers almost always want the same exact ticket. and pay the same exact amount. It's almost always a single A/B ticket, and they paid $4 when it's $3, and so you have to give them $1 back in change. There's almost no variation here, which is kind of annoying. I've also seen the AI enter through the door before it's fully opened. There is sort of a customizable HUD. If you press tab, then it brings up options to enable and disable things from the HUD, including mirrors. This is something that can be quite useful if you don't have any head or eye tracking to be able to look at your mirrors without reaching for a mouse. However, you can't move things around on the HUD. They're locked to their place. There's an in-game line, route, timetable, and tour editors. I understand what these menus are showing me, but I don't really understand how to use them. So a tutorial here would have been nice to see. Okay. So the game has some serious performance issues, at least for me. I had to drop it down to 720p in medium graphics settings just to try and get a halfway stable frame rate, and that still didn't work. I was still dropping from 60 FPS down into the 40s and even sub 30s occasionally. Even lowering the settings didn't have an impact on my peak FPS. Running at 1080p epic settings, I was in the low 60s. At 720p medium, I was still max low 60s. Running the game at 1080p epic, 1080p high, and 720p medium all had huge frame rate drops. The only effect lowering the resolution and graphics settings seemed to have was making the game look worse. It didn't actually seem to make it run better at all. I probably wouldn't even mind playing this game at 30 frames per second as long as it was a solid 30 frames per second. But when your frame rate is jumping from 63 down to 26, it makes it really hard to play. The frame rate drops get worse further into the route. The AI is, well, not great, but not totally incompetent. For the most part, they can get around just fine, but I've also had cars merge over right in front of me, cutting me off. I've had cars pull out in front of me, cutting me off. I've even had a truck change lanes right into me. I've had a truck drive partially in the bus lane so I couldn't pass him. And I've had cars turn left across traffic right in front of me. The GPS rerouted me a couple of times during the route. It even rerouted me down a road that wasn't accessible a couple of times. And it doesn't always activate to the next stop when leaving the stop, creating confusion as where to go. So there's definitely some work that needs to be done there. There's some weird lighting issues where the light will flicker or you get weird reflections off of cars. The game is in early access, and so it's currently in phase 1 of 3. And so the features that are going to be coming later in phase 1 is live weather, AI buses, kink protection system for articulated buses, modding vehicle liveries, operating plans manager, profile management system, localization update, performance update, it's definitely needed, and bug fixes and polishing. Phase 2 will bring the MAN Lion City DD bus, map modding tools, bus line 200, a new bus depot that I can't even begin to pronounce, multiplayer free play, chat, voting system, and lobby system, full controller support, AI trams, map selection, Steam Workshop, performance and localization updates, bug fixes and polishing. Phase 3 will add VDL Satya bus and articulated and non-articulated variants, economy to earn money, hire and fire staff, buy and sell vehicles, maintain and repair vehicles, and earn money through ticket sales. Bus line 100, bus line 245, performance and localization updates, bug fixes and polishing. Planned post-release is street name signs. There's a backlogged section, and so items marked as backlogged that are also marked as planned include tutorials, NPC dialogue and subtitles, Steam achievements, free play UI overhaul, UI settings, menu overhaul, vehicle liveries, door control clearance for passengers, delay and premature departure notifications, red light violation penalty, tour statistics and evaluation, bus stop announcements in English, additional NPC vehicles and new NPC models, passenger navigation and animation inside the bus, AI bus and AI traffic improvements. I'll link the roadmap from TML-Studios in the description. So, now we're to the part of the video where I give my thoughts on the game. This game kind of reminds me of Bus Simulator 18, and while I still had my issues with that game, it was much more polished than the bus currently is. It also had more features. But that being said, the game could get better. I like the things I see in the roadmap. There's things that are marked in the backlog section that aren't marked as planned that I'd really like to see, that I think would make this game better. So I'm not really sure if those are things that are not going to do now, or just things that aren't being actively worked on, or don't have current plans for working on them. It's great that they included a roadmap, but the problem is they didn't include any time frame projections for it. And I get it. They don't want to say phase 1 is going to take X amount of time, phase 2 will take Y amount of time, and phase 3 will take Z amount of time. And then at phase 1 take twice as much time, and then delay everything else. But without giving any time projections, it just kind of leaves everyone just hung out there and not have any clue as to how long to expect the game to improve. Are we talking a couple of months, or are we talking a couple of years? Like, we just don't know. There's always going to be delays. But knowing that the developer has plans is always nice. There are some early access games that have been in early access for several years. So, to ensure the community that the game is actively being worked on in a timely manner would be nice. As a company, they should have some internal way of understanding their workflow capabilities and have an idea of how much time things should take to get done without issues. And then be able to guess as to how long each phase should take, even with small delays. They released the roadmap for transparency, but given a time projection, it would be even more transparent. And a projection is just that, a projection, not a set in stone time frame that must be hit. One other thing the roadmap didn't tell us is if any of the new content would be DLC or free. In their past games, new buses were DLC that cost extra money. Map expansions in Fernbus were DLC that cost extra. So will new route additions and new buses be extra DLC for the bus, or will they be free? I really like the map. The fact that it is in a real city is nice, and the fact that it's 1-to-1 scale is nice. The 1-to-1 scale really makes it feel like you're actually driving a bus through a city, going from stop to stop. I said the bus reminds me of Bus Simulator 18, and that's true, it does, but the problem with Bus Simulator 18 was the map felt a little too small, especially starting out. The map has a lot of detail to it, and there's plenty of AI cars and pedestrians to make it feel alive. Unlike American Truck Simulator or Euro Truck Simulator 2, which can kind of feel a little dead at times. The Scania Citywide is very detailed and well made and has clickable buttons, which is always a nice touch. The wheel input mapping issues that I mentioned are easy to look past because it all works, it's just kind of annoying. The AI issues I could sort of get past because it's early access. AI is really hard to program, but the fact that this is their third bus game on the Unreal Engine, you'd think they have worked those bugs out. But no game has perfect AI. So like I said, this is their third bus game on Unreal Engine 4. And so that's kind of my point, though. I just expected more. Some of the issues, you wouldn't think they'd have issues at this point, because they've done it before. I would have expected a more polished game because they've been there and they've made those games on this engine. And so that's kind of where the performance issues get me too, because they've made 2 other bus games on Unreal Engine 4, and so now this game you can't even get it to run smooth at all. I can't even get the game to run higher than 63 FPS no matter what I do. But then it drops into the 30s. I've gone anywhere from 1080p epic to 720p medium, and it still doesn't do anything to help. The game needs to be able to hold a solid frame rate. Changing resolution and graphics quality settings doesn't seem to have much of an effect. You can't lock the frame rate at, say, 30 frames per second either to just try and help it run smooth either. It's hard to recommend this game at $25 when I, having spent my $25, I'm not totally happy with the game. I think there's a good base game here. If they can get into the performance and optimization issues and smooth it out so the frame rate doesn't fluctuate so much, that will go a long way in improving the game. I like the features they have on the roadmap. The biggest thing holding this game back is performance issues. So, at the time of writing this, 343 of the 401 reviews on Steam were positive, which was a little surprising to me. Now, I'm not saying this game is bad, but I'm not saying it's good either. I'm just not ready to give this game a final review, good or bad. The game just came out, and it's in early access, and so there's too many fixable issues for me to say that the game is bad. And so these are issues the developer should be able to fix, but until these issues are addressed, I can't say it's good either. Early access is designed to get a game in front of players and allow them to play the game and find issues and help the development process while giving the developer money and more time to make the game better. But the game needs to be stable and functional when it's released in early access. That being said, there is a disclaimer when you open up the game that says the game will offer limited content and features, will have serious performance issues, they're not kidding, might often crash or not even start at all, you might lose your save games in progress, will receive updates which will change the experience, and there will be bugs. The line actually reads, there will be bugs. A lot of bugs. Seriously, lots of bugs. So they are aware of the issues of this game. So the question now is just, are they going to fix these issues? Are they going to get this game into a more playable state? Are they going to add the content that they say they're going to add? So really, I think this is more of just a wait and see game at this point. If it gets better, then great, because we need a good bus sim. So, have you played the bus yet? If you have, let me know what your thoughts are of the game down in the comments. The rest of this video is going to just be the rest of the route. Thanks for watching, and until next time, so long everybody.
Alexanderplatz, Memhardstraße.